Bonjour, bienvenue au French Tech Podcast. Welcome to the French Tech Podcast. We're still here with Bill at the Big Data World. We're talking to Julien from French Tech and
Bonjour.
the Co-Creation Lab. Could you tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing here today at the Big Data World Conference?
Sure. So you just said it. I've come with two hats. So as a really good representation of what French Tech is, it's an entrepreneur network led by entrepreneurs and for entrepreneurs. And as such, I'm here as the founder and managing director of Co-Creation Lab, but also as one of the main agitators of the French Tech community on the Big Data World.
So we have a very nice media booth here today.
Yes, we do.
Which is absolutely fantastic. We'll be hoping to do some great interviews. You'll also be speaking later, is that correct?
Yeah, totally correct.
What will you be talking about?
I'm lucky to have one of my clients here from Experian, Ben. I think he's gonna talk on the podcast later, actually. From Experian, and with Experian, we've done a lot of work around solving wicked data challenges through co-creation. So using design thinking, design sprints to really solve some of the most complex problems, the one that you think are unsolvable.
What's design thinking for those of us that don't know?
So simply speaking, it's basically human-centered creative problem solving. So putting your user at the very center of your equation and creating new perspective and new ways to solve those problems with changing variables, with technological elements, with and a complex settings in the first place.
When you say human-centered, what does that mean?
So everything we do, so basically when you look at a problem through, for a company, there's three ways to look at it. There's, is it financially viable? That's the way companies work today. But it's also, is it feasible? Do we have the technology? Can we develop the technology to make it work? And then the third lens, which is usually the one that lays behind, is the people. Do we have the right people to do it? Does it have a good impact on the people, the beneficiaries of the solution? So human-centered is making sure that it is desirable for the people we're creating for.
It's also a lot about process, right? About the way you go about solving problems.
Yeah, so there's two lenses for it. There's the first one, that's a mindset. So that's a way of taking a step back on every challenge that you approach to think about, all right, what is the real problem that I'm trying to solve? If I tell you to solve hunger in the world, how do you go at it? What are the different angles at it? So that's kind of a mindset of, all right, what is the problem I'm really trying to solve? And then you have a framework that goes on top of that helps you to go through a process that will help you funnel down to one way to solve the problem or several ways to solve the problem with a very hands-on and very pragmatic approach to it. So how do you build a prototype? How do you validate your learnings with your user in the first place? How do you make sure that before you invest, you've got the answers to your biggest assumptions, basically?
So it's very entrepreneurial.
Oh yes, very much.
Good.
So what's an example of what you would actually do when you're in a company helping people?
So it starts by talking with the stakeholders internally to really understand their context and the depth of the challenges they're working on. And usually a very common one in the company is like, oh, we don't want to do IoT, we want to do AI, or we want to understand what our business look like in the future. But that's not really a tangible problem to solve, right? That's kind of like fluffy, stratospheric kind of thing. And then you start diving into it and you start understanding what is the problem behind that. But for that, you need to interview people, you need to talk to people from different departments that usually don't talk to each other, unfortunately. And you have to understand what is really the space of the problem you're working for, right? So from, we want to do IoT AI, you can come to, all right, how do we solve the banking user experience for the wealthy client of a bank, for instance? How do we create the bank of the future for those guys, and what do they really want out of it? And so you need to understand what are the user needs, and especially the unmet ones, so that you can actually build solutions that matter. And then the second part of it is co-creating a solution. So bringing people from very different backgrounds, so from marketing, compliance, legal, IT, sales, typically people that don't talk to each other every day, and you lock them down in a room for a few days and you make them work towards a solution.
No escape, huh?
No escape.
Yeah.
And the third part that is usually quite uncomfortable for them is, instead of trying to pitch to everyone that they've got the right idea, you're trying to put in front of the user something that you believe is not going to work, so that you can understand why is your solution going to fail. And it is going to fail. You just imagine it in your head and you're a smart person, but then the reality kicks in. So instead of waiting to have spent $1 million, you go see your users or your beneficiaries and say, all right, this is what we imagine. What is wrong with that? What is going to make it fail? So that then by the time you start investing in it, you already got some traction, you already got some validated learnings on, all right, this has a chance to actually succeed.
Oh, that's interesting. Break it before you make it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So what's one thing that you're excited about today for today's conference?
So for today's conference, I'm excited to bring a few very tangible examples to people that have these kind of challenges, right? So we're talking about CIOs, we're talking about people working with data. Everyone is trying to figure out how to make data work for their company, to understand how that can bring value to their business. Well, here's a way that makes it work for cheaper, faster, and I'd like to have like as many conversations as I can with those people. Might end up in the business, but the first step is really to have those conversations and to understand how we can help the industry move forward with that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay, thank you very much, and have a great day here at the
Thank you.
conference.
Thanks.
Okay.